This is Love in Deep Space, Under Deep Space, Chapter 6. When we arrive back in Lincoln from Snowcrest, we immediately go into work and decide to search Anakinas in the association database. No results are found. It's here we're given basic information that the N109 zone used to be a hub for technological advancement, but it was destroyed 14 years ago when the tunnel opened. Essentially, a protofield has completely engulfed the N109 zone, and between the Wanderers and the fog that hangs around the edges of it, the government and the association want nothing to do with it and don't try to pierce the veil. This is very common in basic knowledge, so we get frustrated that the association doesn't have any deeper files on things that are going on in the N109 zone. Tara catches us looking into the N109 zone, and we play it off that we're just looking into it, we're curious, it's nothing important. She says good because they're too busy to make any trouble anyways, they're too busy cleaning up their own mess. And we're like, what do you mean by that? Apparently a month ago on our last mission, tons of deals were being made on the black market surrounding a large sum of protocores. During those deals being made, a large number of those protocores just completely vanished. Without these protocores, the black market essentially crumbles. They need it for weapons, human experimentation, everything that the black market has value in. Nero ends up joining the conversation, stating that Lumiere is responsible for this. He absolutely did this. Lumiere is a mysterious hunter that appeared 14 years ago and was the first hunter to ever kill a Wanderer. He is also known as the only one who can just come and go from the N109 zone without a scratch. We reminisce back on the attack 14 years ago and remember that maybe we have met Lumiere before because we remember seeing a flash of light saving us from a Wanderer that was trying to attack us. We jump out of our thoughts and we're like, you guys, Lumiere hasn't been seen in forever. He's practically an urban legend at this point. There's no way it's him. Nero is sure it's him because he was seen up on a skyscraper in the N109 zone destroying the protocores left and right like fireworks, just discarding them. And hearing someone just crushing protocores reminds us of someone familiar. We know that Lumiere is probably our only shot at getting any true facts about the N109 zone and how to pierce the veil and enter there. Later on that night, we board a subway train to go home. It's super late at night. We were stuck at work trying to research. As we enter the subway train, we stumble upon a sleepy Xavier who is just completely knocked out and there's no one else in the train car. He wakes up and we're making a little bit of small talk and we realize it's been a month since we last saw Xavier. And that's when we start to piece together something suspicious, right? Lumiere and him have something going on together. We're still making small talk. Xavier starts to tell us a little urban legend story to scare us into not taking the subway train so late. He says after midnight, an empty subway train will appear in the station. Anyone who gets on it will be dragged to the depths of the abyss. We tell him to knock it off. We're like, you can't scare me. Stop it. And while we're saying that, we realize the train should have hit the next stop by now. What's going on? The intercom comes on and tells us we're arriving at a station, but it's the exact station we boarded at, which is impossible, and that triggers both of Xavier and our senses. A Wanderer appears bouncing from the glass to glass. Xavier realizes we're basically in an invisible mirror protofield, and we're stuck in a loop, and the only way we're going to be able to get out of this loop is to break all of the glass in the mirrors. Xavier's collar appears, but this time it's blue, and it's almost as if he's consulting it. A sword appears in his hand out of nothing, and we defeat the Wanderer. After defeating the Wanderer, Xavier essentially falls asleep standing up. He's exhausted. We go and get him food because he had mentioned he was starving, and we're reading up on the Wanderer that attacked us. Betez Catlapoca was killed by Lumiere 14 years ago and has not been seen since. Xavier gets really suspicious at the mention of Lumiere, and we ask him, Xavier, are you Lumiere? And he's like, there's no way. The dude should be 40 by now if he appeared 14 years ago. And we're like, yeah, okay, you're right. You can't be him. And he gives us a look of like, excuse me? Like, you don't think I can be him? We're walking down the street and Xavier asks us if we're more interested in Lumiere or the N109 zone. Like, what are our motives? He then tells us if we have any hopes to getting into the N109 zone, you either have the strength and can brute force your way through, or you blend in. This is when we actually find out we live in the same building as Xavier, just a floor below him. And he makes a cute little joke about how we're probably the ones stalking him because he's actually lived there longer than we have. Xavier is very guarded with us and his interactions with us. There's definitely a lot of push and pull of trying to get us to trust each other, and there's a lot of distrust between us as well. He agrees to tell us more about the N109 zone the next morning and says goodnight with a smile. Next morning, we go up to Xavier's and we tell him, hey, I know there's something going on with you and Lumiere. I don't know what, but there's something there. All he replies with a smile is that, are you more interested in Lumiere or the N109 zone? He never really gives us any straight answers. He's always leading us to the answers that we already know. And one of those examples is he leads us to piece together the knowledge that the protocore we found the other day in the no hunt zone is at least has something to do with an ether core. He's shocked when we say, you know, does it have anything to do with an ether core? He kind of like stumbles back a little bit, like, how do you know that? And he tells us that the 2 protocores that we found with him, the one at the research base and the one at the no hunt zone, both possess ether core energy. We ask how the association doesn't know about the ether cores then. He says they won't know for a while, as if he knows exactly when they're going to discover the technology to be able to analyze the ether cores and understand their power. He then asks us why we haven't told them, because obviously we know a ton about the ether core as well. He's very much laying the land of, we all have secrets, and sometimes secrets are kind of okay to keep. He pieces together that the reason we're so interested in the N109 zone is because of our family and the explosion that happened. It swears to us that he's not our enemy, and we're like, someday you might become my enemy. Just because we're on the same page now doesn't mean we'll always be on the same page later on. And this really upsets him. He like shakes his head, and he's just, the mere thought of being an enemy to us really upsets him. This is when he takes our hunter watch and syncs his privileges that are the highest they can go with ours. He gives us 24 hours to look up anything and everything we need to know that was being blocked from us. And he asks us, do you trust me now? He kind of gives out that olive branch of, I'm here to help you. We're not enemies. With that, we rush out thanking him, and that is the end of chapter 6. And I will see you in chapter 7.